Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsonelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you here with me today, and I have an awesome guest. Julia has like the best energy. She is so much fun, so we're going to have a heck of a conversation. So, Julia, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today.
Kat, thank you so much for having me. We had so much fun talking before that I knew this was going to be a really fun afternoon. I've been looking forward to it.
Awesome. I'm so excited. Well, as we jump in, then Julie, do us a favor then and tell everybody who you are, what it is that you do, and what got you into your space.
Sure. So I'm Julie DeLucca-Collins, and I am a business strategist. I work with women entrepreneurs who are trying to build a life and business confidently. A lot of times we get into following our passions, but we don't know how to run a business like a business. So I teach them how to be the CEO of their business. I'm a former C-level executive for a national educational company, and my passion was really to be able to serve others. And I knew that eventually I was going to leave that career and do something on my own. I really wanted to help women with that confidence piece. And although I started to work with executives, really, one of the things that came very easily to me is to help other entrepreneurs, because as I launched my entrepreneur journey, I had to have a learning curve, and I made some mistakes, and I didn't want to have that be the case for other women as well. And strategy and thinking how to be able to run a business, create offers, get clients, all of that comes very easily to me. Figuring that stuff is fun. So I help women be able to do that. And I'm also an author, podcaster. My show, which you've been a part of, is Casa de Confidence, where we talk about all things confidence and how to leverage it for our life and for our career or business. And again, I'm an author too, which is Confident You. There's a theme here, Confident You. I love everything confidence. So mainly because I'm a tiny habits coach. And one of the things that we love to say in the Tiny Habits Academy is that confidence comes from the habits that we have. And I'm a firm believer of that.
I love that. And I love tiny habits. I know you and I talked about this before. It's like one of my favorite things because I do feel like stacking the smaller things is what starts to build that mountain and create what it is that we want. And a lot of us forget that. And I think that's because society pushes so much on like, what was your big win? It's like sometimes you don't have that, right? I mean, it could be 6 months. And instead of you celebrating like the small milestones, you beat yourself up the whole time. You forget how far you've come. And then you get in this space of what, like this gap, right? I know Benjamin Hardy's one of my favorite psychologists.
The gap and the gain.
The gap and the gain. And I love that because so many of us, myself included, get caught in that middle space and we forget to look back on all the small things and where we're going, but appreciate that present moment.
Yeah. So glad you talked about that because I think that that really is our brain has the propensity to be negative. And we are always going to look at, I'm not good enough. Look how far I still have to go. Or why should I
Mhm.
bother? And then what happens is when we stop, right, then it's harder to begin again. And many times we're saying to ourselves, hey, I'm not doing what I should be doing. I don't measure up. And yet, if we really were to look at that, right? Maybe there's things that have been working, but because we stop and we already think of the negative, we really hurt ourselves. I
Mhm.
equate this to you know how like when you're on a diet and then you weigh yourself every day, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm not going to weigh myself because I had, whatever, fill in the blank, whatever your
Yep.
thing is, right? And when I was in a weight loss journey, I will tell you that I was like that. And then I said, no, I'm going to celebrate that I am in this journey. I'm going to use the numbers as as a guide, and really it'll help me understand my body. If I had pizza last night, how does that work with my body? And a lot of times where I was like, oh, I have to weigh myself, I lost, but I would have
Mm.
never known. And that's really what happens in life. We may be making the progress, but because we don't take a chance on ourselves and we assume and we're telling ourselves a story, we then cheat ourselves from actually being proud and moving in the direction of the dreams that we have.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think being proud of ourselves is a huge thing because we're so used to searching for the outside
Mhm,
validation.
mhm,
And you're right, we beat ourselves up because of that. And I think that confidence, inner confidence,
yeah,
goes along with that ability to be able to be proud of yourself, regardless of what anybody else thinks,
mhm,
right? And I think that that's
yeah,
probably one of the hardest things for people to realize is you can have the confidence within yourself and somebody say, well, I didn't think it was that great. And you'd be like, well, I did.
mm,
And
yeah,
be able to walk on from it. And that's hard. So, since confidence is kind of your theme too, I have to ask, how do you define confidence?
yeah,
And how do you think that people can begin getting to that confidence phase of themselves?
yeah. So I think that for me, and it really has become a little more clearer through the years, but confidence to me is the marriage of bravery and action. And a
Mm,
lot of times we think, just like with confidence, like, oh, I need to feel brave. I don't feel it. You're never going to always feel brave or confident. But
yeah.
when you are taking action, then you begin to see the results of you doing it, of you being able to maybe get a step closer to where you're going. And I think that for me, confidence is that evidence that we are doing it and that we were brave enough to do it, even if we didn't feel like we could, right? That's what confidence is to me.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. And you know what's really interesting too is I literally just made a reel yesterday around this. Now, I didn't use the word confidence, but the thing that actually came up was I had someone that reached out to me privately on my DMs, and
Mhm.
she said something on the lines of, how do you do the do? And she said, how do I
Mhm.
walk
Yeah.
into a room and I lead and I do all these things and I feel like I'm present? She's like, but when I leave, I feel like a scaredy cat. I completely beat
Yeah.
myself up. And one of the things that came to me, which I think is a beautiful piece in what you're talking about as well, is I think that there are so many times where we have to step into the spotlight
Mhm.
for something. And while we may be scared out of all living daylights, we put on that face, we put on that
Mhm.
bravery and we do it. But what's
Yeah.
interesting is, a lot of people say, well, I just put the mask on so I can make it through it. And what I actually made the reel on was, what if it wasn't that you put a mask on? What if that was a glimpse of the
Mhm.
next level of you, that next
Yes.
level of confidence, that next level of
Yeah.
courage, and you actually got to see it, whether it was a
Mhm.
speech for 15 minutes
Yep.
or, whatever it was, but you actually got to see who you had the ability to become versus we're like, oh, I feel imposter syndrome.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it was just a really interesting perspective. And I
Yeah. I
really
love
wanted
that.
people to think of this
Love
like,
it.
I don't think that it's a mask. I think we
Mm-mm.
actually get to see small pieces of who we
Yeah.
can become, but we have to choose to be able to see that and not
Yeah.
tell ourselves that, oh,
Yeah.
it was just a fake. It was just a
I
mask.
agree. I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, fake it till you make it." You're not
Mm-hmm.
faking it. We all have to begin someplace, and you're going to appreciate this. Benjamin Harding has a book about the future self. Love that book as well. I mean, I love everything. I would say most everything he writes, and that is what happens, right? I'll give you an example. I had on my goals, my life goals, that I was going to become a TEDx speaker. I applied to a TEDx in 2022 and I immediately was denied. I'm like, sorry, no, no, thank you. And I did not apply again. Fast forward, it was the beginning of 2023, maybe February, February, March. And then a friend of mine said, how's that goal? You've had it that you were going to become a TEDx speaker. And I thought, I haven't applied because obviously I was afraid, right? I already had gotten a
Yeah.
rejection. And he said, absolutely not. You need to apply. So I picked one TEDx talk, and I applied. And it got easier when I applied for the second one. I made the finalist for the first and the second, and then I moved to the next step, right? And then I applied for the third TEDx, not knowing which one I was going to make or if I was even going to make any of them at all. By the time I had applied to the third one and I was going to the interview because I made a finalist,
Mm-hmm.
I had already been told no by the other two. But I was more confident going into that interview as a finalist to the point that I was able to be chosen as a TEDx speaker. Now, when I was on stage, and by the way, I've been speaking in public for a long time. I have a podcast. I was a teacher. Talking in front of people is not something that I get intimidated, but I was terrified and I was shaking and I kept like I did not sleep the night before because I
Oh
thought, oh my
no.
gosh, I'm going, you name it, right? Whatever happened,
Yep.
it's going through my brain. And when I stepped up on stage, right? I I'm like, I went through, did my talk. It was great, fantastic. I still was a little shaky, and I could tell that I was shaky. I wasn't like, oh, look at me. But I did the thing today, right? It's, I don't know, 9 months later. I'm like, look at me go. I'm a TEDx speaker, right? And if someone invited me to another TEDx talk, I am a TEDx speaker and I can step into that authority because I am the future self of the girl that got denied the first time and was afraid to apply again. And I
Mm.
had to dig deep into Julie today and ask Julie, what did you do to get there? And I think that sometimes we don't leverage the power of the future self. If we can just say, who do I need to be to have that? Who do I need to do? What do I need to do to accomplish whatever it might be? Then we are able to then outline for ourselves step by step. And again, you don't do it at once. You take one thing at a time. And by the way, you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to show up and you're not going to feel like you got it together. But the more that you do it, you will get it together.
I love that. And I think that we forget this. I was literally having this conversation with a young gentleman. He's 28, when I was getting my tattoo done a couple weeks ago. And he had jumped from being an HVAC to following his passion. And we
Mhm.
were having this conversation around it. And one of the things that I told him was, he said, well, I don't feel like I'm that good. And I said, well, do you think anybody was born with the ability to do something
Yeah.
absolutely amazing? I said, I think that we forget that because
Mhm.
one, it's not really a thing that society talks about, that we talk
No.
about the journey. It's one of the reasons why I love Ed Sheeran. There have been
Mm.
several interviews, if you guys
Mhm.
ever catch him, where he talks about what he sounded like when he first started. And he actually saves a clip and it's so
Oh my
bad.
gosh, that's
It's so
awesome.
off key, but he shares that and he
Wow.
says, this is where I started. And we
Mhm.
forget that because we see people where they are shining now, and we
Mhm.
assume like, oh my God, they've always had this gorgeous talent. They've always been great at it. But if you look at like even Picasso, like they
Mhm.
started somewhere from the bottom and had to
Yeah.
work their way up, but they wanted to follow the passion so bad that that is what kept them going. And
Mhm.
I don't think that that piece is shared enough in people's journey to remember that, like, it's okay to look back at
Yeah.
where we were and know that as long as we continue to push,
Mhm.
we're going to continue to improve. And then
Yeah.
we can start visualizing where we want to be and where we
Yeah.
see ourselves being.
100%. I believe that sometimes, the world is always going to point out your flaws. And my dad used to say, and again, it's not something that he came up with, but it makes sense. Honey, if you toot your own horn, nobody else is going to be there to do it for you. So you have to learn how to do it yourself. And
Mhm.
we have to give ourselves credit for waking up, for showing up. Sometimes um, I may come to start my day and I may not feel motivated and I may be tired. Maybe I'm distracted, but I show up. That's showing up 100%. Even if I didn't, show up with the same energy and peppiness, we need to celebrate showing up because
Mhm.
that is what actually gives us the evidence. Like I did it, I showed up, I keep going, I keep trying, as opposed to, just assuming that we're gonna do it on the first time around. And the other piece of this is, I forget, it's escaped me. I was thinking about this as you were speaking. There's that book where he talks about that it takes 10,000 hours for someone to be an expert in anything.
Yes.
I haven't spent 10,000 hours at anything that I think of. Maybe I have. I maybe need to go look, but I'm still a work in progress, and that's okay. And then
Yeah.
I need to choose, where are my 10,000 hours going to go? Because then
Mhm.
that's the other piece of it. And I see this with entrepreneurs all the time. A lot of my clients come to me because they, finish the month and they have no money in the bank, right? And they're like, oh, I work so hard. But that's because they're spending their hours, right? Of these 10,000, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do, and then they're putting their efforts in so many different places that you cannot get traction in any of it. You need to
Mhm.
pick one, do it well, keep going. Once that's up and moving and you've been at it and you're seeing a return for the investment of time, then it's time for you. You can move to the next one and you can replicate the effort and practices and whatever it took for you to get there. But that's the thing that many times trips us, that we think, oh, I did this and it didn't work. How long did you do it? I don't know. Like the diet that you only did for a couple days,
Yeah.
course, it's not going to work if you go back to eating, chocolate cake. But if you eat healthy every day, you put an effort, and maybe, you'll have some days that maybe you do eat the chocolate cake, but you come back to it, you'll move to the direction of the dreams that you have.
I love this so much too because, I think about all of the newer entrepreneurs that I've worked with, and even
Mhm.
some of those that are in the 6 and 7 figure range.
Yeah.
And I feel like we all fall into this trap, that shiny object syndrome, where
Oh, yeah, I
somebody
know.
said, this is the
Yeah,
thing
that's,
that's going to get you all of the
yeah,
clients.
this is
And
the
it's like,
solution. Yeah.
yes, that might be the solution for them.
Oh,
And
yeah.
some people can take that and implement it,
Mhm.
and it may work for them, but it doesn't mean it's
Yeah.
the end all be all. That's one of the
Mhm.
reasons why a lot of us got
Yeah.
into the entrepreneurial space to begin with. So we
Mhm.
didn't have to follow the rules. So we
Yes.
didn't have to follow somebody else's way. And so we could carve
Mhm.
our own path. But then we get in there and we get in that groove and we're like, okay, I'm tired of figuring this out. Who can I
Yeah.
reach to that can just give me the
Mhm.
information? How can I copy paste? And then we wonder why
Yeah.
it doesn't work for us. And I think
Mhm.
that a lot of us forget that you can't always take somebody else's thing, especially if it doesn't even feel good to you when you're trying it out,
Yeah.
and then put it in. And then the other piece is,
Yeah.
like you said, following the data. That is a
Oh,
big one. Are
yeah.
you tracking, right? How long are
Mhm.
you giving something an opportunity? I see people that talk about, oh, well, I was posting on social media and I wasn't getting anything. And I'm like, well, how often were you posting? Oh,
Yeah.
like 2, 3 times a week. Okay, how long
Mhm.
did you do it? Did you stick with this one call to action?
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I did the call to action like once or twice. I'm like, It takes
Mm,
you posting the same
yeah.
thing 7 times
If not
before
12.
it gets, yeah, before it
Yeah.
gets in front of the right
Yeah.
people. Like,
Yeah.
think about that. And then you're wondering why, when you sporadically kind of put it out there once or twice,
Mhm.
you're thinking everybody saw it, when in reality, maybe one person did.
No,
So
there's
tracking that
the
data.
numbers are skewed. The numbers are
Yeah.
skewed. If we look at social media as an example, right? We think, oh, I've been posting about this. Well, first of all, you may have 100 followers, right? Out of 100 followers, only 20% see your stuff because of the algorithm. And out of that
Mm-hmm.
20% that Facebook, Instagram, or whatever is going to be showing your stuff with, maybe only two of them are online when you're posting it. And most of these posts have 2 hours, 3 hours of a life cycle of a post. And then people are, the algorithm moves to
Yep.
the next thing. So if you post it today and your people didn't see it, it doesn't mean that it wasn't successful. It just means that stay your course, be consistent. Because that
Mm-hmm.
consistent action, as I like to say, is the one that gets you traction. So you have to just do the thing. Be the boring person that is, saying it. Because if you are saying it and you're tired of it, keep doing it. Because then all of a sudden people are like, oh, really? That's great. Oh my God. How come I didn't know?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and by the way, like to give you an example, my mom, if your mom is in social media, my mom stalks me on social media, right? And she's the one that's liking all the things and whatever. And sometimes she'll call and she's like, oh, I didn't know you were doing this. I'm like, really? I've been talking about this for months and you're seeing it because you liked it. So if that is what happens to me, it happens to all of us with clients.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the
Mhm.
things that I started doing too when I started being a little bit more present on social media is the first time that someone ever said that, you have to post it consistently because nobody sees it, right? It takes
Yeah,
several
right.
times. I started paying attention to the people that I was following. And you can look on
Mhm.
both Facebook and Instagram, right? You can see
Yeah,
the day that they posted it. And it
yeah.
was crazy to me to notice when I was scrolling through
Mhm.
my features that there were some were like 4 days, 7 days. And I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
just now seeing this.
you're
Why
just
is
not
this in my
seeing it.
feed now?
Yeah.
It's crazy. But that actually
Mhm.
really helped me because it was like, oh, okay, it really
Yeah,
is true. Like, it really
yeah.
doesn't cycle correctly. Now, besides social media and people needing to, really choose what it is they want to start with, what is something else that you notice as a business strategist that people tend to
Mhm.
struggle with the most?
So I would say across all things, definitely is consistency. I think that consistency, whether we do it when we're doing sales calls, when we are sending emails, when we are doing our social media, when we are talking to people. The other big piece, and this is the second one that I think intimidates a lot of people because half the population is introvert, networking. When I say
Mm.
networking to some people, they run the other way. But we have to start to think of networking not as like, oh, I'm going to go shake hands and exchange business cards. No, it could be that. I'll give you an example of networking for me. There is a town Facebook group, and they have a post that you can do Monday, Wednesday, Fridays where you promote your business. I have never, maybe once or twice, put something in there, but not really. However, I go in and I read, and if someone's asking a question that I can answer, I answer it. Now, I happen to go in there because I needed some stuff removed from my lawn. That we had some junk stuff from a construction project we did. So I hired somebody, right? I hired this guy to come and provide a service to me, right? And he says, oh, what do you do? We were talking as he's leaving. Oh, I work from home. This is what I do. And he's like, oh, really? And I told him basically, I said, I'm a business strategist. I help individuals who are building a business create that consistency. And he's like, oh, I'll follow you. And I said, great. Then he went in and he followed me. Now, fast forward a month and a half later, guess who called to book a strategy session? Not like a free discovery call, but a strategy session. All I did was tell this person about my business, Why do I love doing what I'm doing? In a normal conversation, not being sleazy, like, oh my God, you should hire me if you have a business, right? But it
Mm-hmm.
was just like, oh, this is what I do. Just plain and simple. That is networking. When people know that that's what you do. And I think that again, we make it so hard in our brain. It's not like yes, we have to have our elevator speech, but don't make it crazy. Just
Yeah.
say the thing that you want somebody else to say about you when you're not in the room. Make it
Ooh, I love
simple,
that.
right? Like if you're not in the room and someone is going to explain, hey, what does Julie do? That's what you want to say so that person gets the language and says, oh, she helps businesses, right? She helps them build a business. She helps them with what it takes. So that is how simple it can be. No complication here. And
Mm-hmm.
that's and honestly, networking for me is the lifeline of my business. Not because I'm talking to people with the hopes that they're going to hire me. I'm talking to people because first of all, I like talking to people, but second of all, just talk to people, be human. And then if the more that you are in front of somebody talking, then someone will say, oh, you know what? I do know someone that does that. Oh, you should meet my friend. They're the ones who, right? Like that's what it's all about. It's
Yep.
growing relationships. Business is relational. And that's where people really struggle and forget that it's all about relationships.
It really is. And I love that you kind of flipped the networking piece on its head because I do think that a lot of us get confused.
Mhm.
And so we're like, okay, we're supposed to network so that they'll hire me. And
Right.
then when you get through the conversation, I know this used to happen a lot in the beginning of mine as well, as people would say, oh, how can I help you? And I'd be like, well, I'm looking for clients. Girl, I done had
Mhm.
a conversation with you for 30 minutes. I don't know who to send to you, but you're right.
Yeah.
If you can find the people that vibe with you and you stay
Mhm.
in touch with them and you reach back
Yeah.
out to them, or like you were saying, if you can find a group where you can give
Mhm.
value to people in that
Yeah.
group, that is how you build from it and people connect from that. And
Mhm.
they always say that if you don't talk about what it is that you do, how is anybody supposed to know about it? But I
Yeah.
think that we forget that there are like 10,000 different ways
Mhm.
to be able to do that, and
Yeah.
sometimes just providing value to other people in comments
Mhm.
or sharing your passion with
Yeah.
someone who maybe has a similar passion can create referral partners,
Mhm.
JV partnerships. Like there's
Yeah.
so many different
Yeah.
pieces to it. But I think that a lot of people have taken it and just seen it as we're supposed to
Yeah.
connect. I'm going to tell you who I want. You're supposed to
Mhm.
send people to me.
Yep.
And the
Or you're
moment
going to
that
be
I,
my client, and that's why
right.
I'm talking to you because I want you to hire me.
Yep.
No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. And I feel like the
No.
moment that you take that out and just
Mhm.
enjoy the
Yeah.
conversation, the more natural that becomes, the relationship stays there.
Mhm.
And then not only do you find people that you enjoy conversating with, but you also can find people to leverage for your business, to lean
Absolutely.
on for your business,
Mhm.
right? And to grow it. That has
Yeah.
been a really cool thing that I have realized in
Yeah.
this is you can
Mhm.
grow with people that you get to know
Mhm.
online. I think that that's the beauty of
Oh,
Zoom
yeah.
and all the online platforms is being able to find your tribe, but not
Mhm.
necessarily right beside you.
Right. I have to tell you, there's one person that I met last, no, it's going to be 2 years now. I met her about 2 years ago. And this is the other piece of the networking that people become afraid, right? Um, oh, she's a business coach. I don't want to talk to her because, she does the same
Mm,
thing that I do. So I met this woman almost 2 years ago, and she's a business coach. I mean, you read her stuff, you read mine, you're like, oh, what's the difference, right? The reality is that there is a difference. There's people that resonate with her for certain things and people that resonate for me for certain things, but we have become promotional partners. She's as much of a networker as I am, right? I probably from her, well, actually, she's much better than I am. She sends me weekly, not once though on a blue moon, weekly. She sends me at least two, three, 10 introductions. Hey, Julie, I just met so and so. You should connect with them. Hey, so and so, meet Julie. She's blah, blah, blah. And it's in our corner, right? Now, here's the progression of the relationship. There's some people that I've met in there that have come and taught in my mastermind. There's some people in there that learn about what I do and say, you know what, I'm looking for someone, or I know someone in my networking group needs this, or would you like to come speak? Now, I do the same thing for her. I introduce her to everyone, mostly that I know that would be a good fit for her. And
Hmm.
now the relationship has grown. She was starting a podcast. Guess who she contacted? She contacted us because she knows my husband and I help individuals do that. Now she's teaching a course at a university, and she doesn't want to sit and teach it all. She wants to bring in guest speakers because guess who's doing some of the teaching for her course, right? And it's a win-win for both of us because, yes, I'm going to be teaching her students. Yes, I'm helping her. But now I'm able to say to people, guess what? I taught at the University of Hawaii.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a win in the relationships, but don't go in looking for the win. Go in being the person that gives to the other because that reciprocity will come back to you.
I love that so much. And let's
Mhm.
say that again. Don't go in looking for the win. Go
Yeah.
in and make the connection and the reciprocity will come
Yeah.
back to you. I think that that is so important because we, especially in the corporate space,
Hmm.
we've taught to have competition. You're taught to
Yeah.
compete against your peers. You're taught to compete when you want to go up the ladder. You compete
Hmm.
with other companies, right? Like
Yeah.
it's always that competition. And it's really an interesting space when you step into this entrepreneurial journey
Hmm.
that you find, especially for those that
Yeah.
have been in business for a lot of years, that have had success, they are willing to share everything with you.
Mm,
Why? Because they
absolutely.
know that you're not going to do it exactly the same, that they can't help
Yeah.
everybody, and that you may relate to people that they can't or they choose not to. Like there is
Hmm.
space
Yeah.
for everyone. And I think that that is such an important piece
Yeah.
to put out there
Hmm.
for anyone in business.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% in that. And I think that many entrepreneurs, again, you we see the world compete and we think that we need to compete.
Hmm.
Yes, competition is healthy and good. However, if you really are clear on what your values are, if you're really clear on what your vision is, and then act accordingly, there's going to be people that will see you and the next person that offer the same thing. And some people will go to the next person because their values, the way that they do things, what they're working towards aligns and speaks to them. But then
Hmm.
there's going to be people that will come to you because of what you hold dear, what's important to you, how you're able to relate to them. And again, that's the thing that we need to really keep in mind as we're doing this entrepreneur thing.
I love that. And I love that you brought up values because I don't think a lot of people pay enough attention to that. And I know that even when I first started, I didn't understand
Mhm.
values. Like that
Yeah.
wasn't a part of what I was taught. It wasn't something that was out there. And when people did say it, I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't know.
Like, yeah.
Honesty. I mean, that's, like that's a big thing. But
Mhm.
what would be your take on values? How would you
Yeah.
define how someone
Oh,
can choose what are
yeah.
values to them?
Oh, so funny you asked this. I love it. Okay, so I started a series in YouTube and it's also on my podcast. It's a 30-day series and I'm talking about a lot of these things. And values is just the episode I released yesterday. So when people come and work with me, new entrepreneur, the first thing I make them do is we do a personal branding exercise. And that includes figuring out what your values are. Here's why we have to figure that out. If we know what's important to us, then we can communicate it to the people, right, that will be our clients. And then we can find the language to say, hey, if you need, so let's take a client. A client wants to, they're not looking for like a hole in the wall. They're not looking for a drill to make a hole in the wall. Okay. They're looking to have the result. What's the result? The hole in the wall. So if I know what my values are, right, I'm going to be able to talk about the result, not the drill, but the hole in the wall. With how I help you, it's important that we're going to measure where we're going to put the hole, we're going to find the stud, whatever the values are, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting really technical, but anyway, But for me, right, this is the other piece when it comes to values. People may say, oh, this is important to me. I value this. And then I will say the question that people are not ready for. But if you're listeners, I think that this is something you should do. If you think my top value is my family, I want you to go look at your calendar and I want you to see where is your family in that. If you're spending dinners with them, if you stop scrolling or don't checking of social media or emails after a certain time, you're really building in that quality time, then yeah, you're right, your value is family. But if you're telling me that your value is family and you're working 24/7, then you're not congruent. And then when you're trying to tell people I'm a family man, no, you're not. You're a person that
Mm,
wants to be a family man, but they don't know. And maybe and again, there's no judgment on what you choose to spend your time in, but just be clear on the priorities and the order that things fall into. The other exercise that we do a lot on a quarterly basis is we go back and we really analyze, okay, these are my top values, but where are they going to fall in this stage in the next 12 weeks? Why? Because there's always cyclical stuff. When I was doing my TEDx last year, at this time last year, is my husband important to me? Absolutely. But he was honestly not the person that I spent the most time with. The person that I spent the most time with was me practicing or being with people who were helping me craft that talk, right? And then you begin to kind of create that roadmap for yourself because your values are with you. One of the first things for me when I launched my business, I got laid off on a Tuesday. I'll never forget. It was a Tuesday. I got the call. It was about 5:30. It wasn't easy. It was the beginning of the pandemic. And
mm,
yes, it was hard, but at the same time, I knew like, okay, I knew I'd been wanting to go out on my own. Fine, I'm going to take the leap. I'm going to do that. So that night I went to bed and I couldn't sleep. And finally, I sat up, grabbed my phone, and I went to the notes and I wrote what my mission was going to be. I also wrote what my vision was. And then I wrote, what are the things that I value for myself? Things that I value are service, number one. Number two, learning, growth, connection, right? So if you look at my business, I love connecting with people. You will see me connect with people. If someone asks me, like my friend in Hawaii, hey, do you mind helping me? I will serve, right? What am I
mhm.
doing? I'm always innovating, learning something new so that I can grow. And when I make mistakes, sometimes I will be oblivious. And then sometimes I'll be like, oh, I made a mistake. Okay, how do I learn from this? So all those things are my values. So when people come to work with me, they know what to expect because that's the action that they see me take, not just the verbal me saying it. And
Mhm,
that's what's going to help you attract the people that align with you, the people that want to work with you, and the people that need what you have to offer.
mm. That's so beautifully said. Like, I don't even have anything else to add to it. I love it so much, but I do think that values is something that
Mhm.
really does need to be one of the first things.
Yeah.
And like you said, you need to make sure that you're also living it and not just
Mhm.
speaking it. I think that we forget that.
Yeah.
We have good intentions. It's not that we're doing it maliciously,
Right.
but in order for people to connect with that, you have to be able to live by it as well, because
Mhm.
then you wholeheartedly see it, feel it, own it, and you
Mhm.
understand other people when they're coming from as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's, how a lot of people connect with me, especially when I talk
Mhm.
about my trauma and the abuse that I went through. That's where
Yep.
people connect from, is because of the growth that I went through with that and the judgment that I allowed for a while on myself
Mhm.
because of having children. And there's so many people that can relate to that, and making the decision to change something, right? And if so, if that
Yep.
inspires other people, then that's the whole point of it. So I
Yeah.
I, I love leading with values. I think it's
Mhm.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Julie, I think that we could go on all
Oh,
day
oh,
about
all
all the
day.
different
This is
pieces.
what
Like,
happens when you find your people, right? You find your world with surround yourself with the people that are like-minded, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So, as we come to a close, one question I always ask all my guests
Okay.
is, do you happen to have a quote or a
Mhm.
piece of advice you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, very simple. It all goes back to the quote that is the quote that why my business is called what it is. And it is go confidently in the direction of your dreams. And that means that you're going to have to take the consistent action to do the thing so that you have the evidence to be more confident in the things that you are doing that getting you closer to your dreams and the things that you desired for your life.
I love that so much. It really is interesting how much confidence makes a difference, like
Mhm.
true inner confidence.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. So, tell us then, Julie, how can everybody find you, connect with you, be in your
Yeah.
world?
Okay, well, very simple. I am Julie DeLucca-Collins on all social media platforms. Also, my website is goconfidentlyservices.com or goconfidentlycoaching.com, whichever is better for you to remember. And then if you go to goconfidentlycoaching.com/quick links, all my free best resources are there. So if you want to
Nice.
download, I have a mini course in there. I have a tiny habits coaching in there as well. If someone is interested in learning habits, or if you want to figure out what sabotages you, I have a quiz you can take. So yeah, go check it out.
Oh, wonderful. And of course, we'll have all that information in the show notes. We'll make it super simple for you to find and connect with Julie on all platforms and definitely give you the link for you to check out her free resources. I mean, who doesn't want to be able to take a quiz to answer some questions and gain some clarity? So, Julie, I can't thank you enough for being a part of the podcast today and just openly sharing so much information and goodness to the audience.
Thank you for having me, Kat. And thank you for
Oh, of
creating this
course.
platform where people can come and learn and really be able to create more relationships so that we can all make the world a better place and create that ripple effect for others.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. And I
You're
appreciate that
welcome.
so much. So,
Thank you.
you're so welcome to everybody else out there. I hope that you were taking notes because there's just so many aspects of this. And regardless of where you're at in your business, it's always great to come back to the basics, to look and refresh yourself, to pay attention to what values have changed, what things have changed in your business, how have you changed, and make sure that you're analyzing that stuff. So make sure that you go find Julie. She's absolutely amazing. And until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. So until next
Mm.
time, have a fantastic day. Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.